Hello and a very warm welcome to yet another scintillating edition of the program CAC Weekly, a weekly program that keeps you abreast on the activities and the achievements of the Corporate Affairs Commission. I am Amina Jabril. Coming up, staff welfare receives a boost as Registrar General unveils a new scheme for objective measurement staff performance. CAC continues reform initiatives, rolls out emails. We will be right back after this break. Do stay with us. Welcome back. Since its establishment over 30 years ago, the Corporate Affairs Commission had been using the annual performance evaluation report to measure staff performance, which many experts view as rather subjective and obsolete. The Registrar General and CEO of the Corporate Affairs Commission, Alhaji Garba Abubakar, embarked on a series of reform initiatives to reposition the Commission for optimal performance. The newest of these reforms is the rollout of a new and modern appraisal system, otherwise known as the KPI system, at a management retreat. Declaring open the management retreat on the review of CAC Annual Performance Evaluation Form, the Registrar General charged participants to freely and constructively criticize presentations as well as prefer solutions. Alhaji Garba Abubakar stated that the retreat was part of the efforts being made to improve staff welfare and to reposition the Commission for optimal performance.
So that at the next management meeting, we look at it and adopt things. I don't know whether this has to go to the board, because the board has already given that, the board has approved the product framework. So this is just for implementation. And we said, as we have agreed, this is taking effect from January 2022. Yes, because we agreed to use the all appraisal system because this is not complete. So, thank you so much. All of you, let me thank everybody for coming, for all your contributions, and for sacrificing your weekends to be here.
In a welcome address at the event, the Director, Human Resources, Mrs. Olayemi Oyeniyi, said the new appraisal firm was in tune with the best and adoptable global practices in performance management. She added that it was designed to assess staff performance in three basic and generally accepted performance determinants: knowledge, behavior, and task accomplished. She further revealed that the new firm was structured into parts A, B, and C, which includes a KPI for the year under review and a KPI for the forthcoming year, amongst others.
The form is divided into three parts to accommodate the above and other best and adoptable global practices in performance management. The part A captures the personal details of staff and its applications of specific knowledge indicators in his performance behavior. It also assesses the appraisee on any other contribution made that is worthy of recognition throughout the appraisal year. The part B of the form deals with the task the appraisee is expected to accomplish, the assessment of the targeted KPI for the year under review, and setting the objectives and the KPI for the forthcoming year. The part C of the form enjoys the appraiser to identify the skills or its inadequacies that militated against his appraisee's KPI delivery or poor performance, and suggests areas which developmental training should focus on. The new form seeks to link the appraiser exercise with staff developmental process and the Commission's compensation plan.
In his presentation titled Behavioral and Knowledge Performance Assessment, Haruna Salihu, who is the Assistant Director, Records and Promotion, described the old method of appraisal as subjective and therefore inimical to the growth and development in the system. And from the efforts being made to improve staff welfare, we switch gears to take a look at the measures adopted to enhance service delivery by the Commission. CAC Weekly caught up with Tolulokpe Adiola Shonaike, Assistant Director, Registry Department, who helps us understand how the new initiative works. Enjoy watching.
Good to have you again on the program.
Thank you, Madina. It's good to be here again.
All right. On the 31st of March, the Commission did close all manual submission of applications, and then it further, released another information for some exemptions. Why the exemption?
Right. As you recall, on the 4th of January this year, we deployed a fully electronic solution, an end-to-end electronic solution to company registration and post-registration. As of today, we no longer accept manual submissions of applications of any kind, except those that were listed in the exemptions. Initially, we exempted 4. Alteration of memorandum and articles of association, Schedule 14 filing, amendment of constitution, and the biannual statement of affairs for incorporated trustees. And the reason for the exemption was because their interfaces were still inbuilt, so they were not ready. And because these processes have to continue, we had to provide an avenue for customers to be able to bring in their applications. So that was the reason for the exemptions.
Okay.
We expect that the interfaces will be ready very soon, and then once we deploy, we'll close those windows.
Let's go to the 13 that were, added, and the first on the list is the certified true copy of certificates of incorporation and stroke registration for companies, business names, and incorporated trustees. Yeah.
Now, from time to time, entities may require CTCs. We call them CTC certified true copies of their certificates of registration. Sometimes it is for commercial transactions. Sometimes it's just simply because they have lost it or they've misplaced it. Sometimes it may just be that they are defaced. Whatever the reason, entities want to have certified true copies of those certificates, and certified true copies are as good as originals.
Okay.
So they can be tendered anywhere the original can be tendered. The interface for that is not ready, and that is why we had to still allow the submission, the applications manually. It's one of the interfaces we expect to be ready very shortly. We expect that sometime next month, early next month, it should be ready and deployed.
Okay.
Now, for all of them, as they are deployed, they're taken off the manual list.
Okay. Second one is also called CTC, of Memorandum of Association and Constitution. Yes.
Of the Constitution.
Yeah.
Okay. This is also for, the first one we talked about, they were certificates.
Yes.
Now, for companies, they have a governing document, and that is called the Memorandum and Articles of Association. Okay. For the incorporated trustees, the corresponding document is the Constitution. That's their governing instrument. Now, again, these documents may be needed for commercial transactions. In fact, they are more readily sought than certificates. Certificates hardly get lost, or damaged. What most people would do would be to go and laminate them.
Yes, yeah.
But and then when people request your evidence of registration, they don't usually tell you to drop. They can't ask you to drop the original. So except in few circumstances where they tell you want certified true copies, usually all they want is just to see. So they tell you, give me a copy of your certificate. But with Memorandum and Articles of Association and Constitution, they usually will tell you, go and give us the certified true copy. Because again, the concern for them is that between the time you registered your company and now, you could have altered that memorandum and articles, those ones, or even your constitution. So they tell you we want something current, more present from the CAC. And what will indicate that currency and presence is the stamp, the date of the stamp. So they tell you, go and give us something not later than, far behind than 3 months back. So they tell you within the last 3 months, okay, give us a certified true copy. So people want that too, and it's not ready. The interface is also not ready. For all of them, the interfaces are not yet ready. So we must be able to give people that.
Okay, so let's go to the third one, which is the CTC of audited financial statement.
Right. For this, will apply only to companies and incorporated trustees, not business names.
Okay.
Now, when they file their annual returns, the law requires that the annual returns, which is a form online that you populate, must be accompanied by the financial statements as audited. So they must always come with audited financial statements. Again, people may want, investors may be interested because the documents that are with us by law are public documents. And the law says that upon payment of the prescribed fees, that is fees we prescribe as the commission, anybody can obtain these certified true copies. But again, the law now operates subject to the need to protect personal information, under the data protection regulations, and even under CAMA itself, you can restrict some information from the public record. Now, those information that are not restricted, what that means is that anybody can generally obtain them. This is one of them.
Okay.
The audited financial statements, whether for incorporated trustees or for companies, they can obtain them.
Okay. All right. And then the fourth one on the list is historical search on a report on directors or officers' information. Yeah.
Now, these reports, depending on, you see that you have three there. You have the one for officers of the company that would include the directors,
yes, and
the company secretary.
Okay.
And then you can also be extended to include shareholders, even though they are not officers of the company, right? And then you have the other category,
which is on charges, debentures, and memorandum of satisfaction.
Yes, any encumbrance on the companies. Okay. Now, people again are interested. This is a high volume transaction, so I mean, people keep asking from time to time. If you were to look at our transactions and applications we receive, these will probably for the first two particularly, historical search report for directors and company secretaries, historical search. In fact, that particularly will perhaps be the highest number of applications we receive. They tell you before you call the CTC of CO7, the CTC of CO2. So people want it. We have to give them once they pay. The history. What we're talking about is the report on them. Because now we don't issue CTCs of particulars of directors. By that I mean the exact form we have in the file, in your record, because they contain personal information about your residential addresses, which ordinarily should be restricted, information about your signature, information about your identification number, name. I mean, these are in the face of prevailing
security challenges.
Yes, and cybercrime. You want to limit exposure of this information. And when the owners release them to you, they are released to you under the understanding that you'll be careful with their use. You also don't want to jeopardize their own security, and safety. Okay. Right. So what we'll give now will be extracts. And beyond the extracts, you can apply to have, we want to know the history of directors of this company. Who were the people that started it? How many changes have occurred? Who are the present directors? The same thing you want to know about shareholders. And even encumbrances like charges, mortgages, debentures, and whether they have been released. Whether a company's property is, all the properties or some of them are free of encumbrances. These are, again, information that are required for commercial transactions. Okay. So we give them.
Okay. All right. So since we've taken the historical search, I think there are about three numbers. Yes. So that takes us to the seventh on the list, which is the allotment of shares for companies with unissued share capital.
Right. By section 124 of the Companies and Allied Matters Act. In fact, we should start from section 27, which dispensed with the concept of authorized share capital. In its place, what we now have is minimum issued capital, share capital. Now, authorized share capital presupposes a situation where companies are allowed to prescribe the maximum threshold, the upper limits of the shares they can issue for the purpose of capital. Now, under the 1990 Act, companies were not required to issue all of the authorized capital so prescribed, but 25% of it. So what that meant is that you could have a company with authorized share capital as 10 million. All the law requires you to do is to issue at least 2.5 million for the purpose of raising capital. For many companies, they continue with that without having to come and issue more. In other words, all they actually need for business to optimize their returns is just 2.5 million. Meanwhile, you have created 10 million. With that 10 million comes additional costs because you must pay stamp duties for all of the shares. not just the 2.5 you have issued. You must pay filing fees to CAC for all of the 10 million, not just the 2.5. Now, those are additional costs. Those are burdens, on starting a business. They are added costs to starting a business. So what the law prescribes, and our attitude generally as a people, we want optics for us is more important than the substance. So we want people to know us as my company is universal, international,
big
global, big boy.
Yeah.
So you want to just the record. My company is I have 100 million share capital. In actual fact, what you are trading with is just 25 million, and it's been sufficient for you. Now, sometimes when you also have this kind of situation and you issue the whole of the 100 million, you may have a situation where you are overcapitalized. And overcapitalization is not good for return on investment, because what it does is that it expands the pool of those who will divide the pie. And the larger the pool is, the smaller each person gets. So if you want to enhance investor returns and all of that, the law just identified that, look, why don't you create your shares per time?
Okay.
Whatever you need at the particular time, create it. So long as for a private company is not less than 100,000, and for public companies not less than 2 million. So if what you need now is the 2.5 million, create just 2.5 million value of shares. Tomorrow, when you want to expand and you have investors, for instance, you can create more shares. So that is where the law now dispenses with authorized share capital, and instead requires minimum issued capital.
Okay.
What is the capital, the minimum capital you require now? Just issue that.
Okay.
So
much flexibility to deal with that.
Yes. But don't forget that this is a law that is coming on stream now. There are companies that have operated. Most companies have operated under 1990.
Yes, yeah.
So quite a lot of them will have shares that are issued, because at that time they were not required to issue everything. Okay. Now, Section 124 now says if you fall in that category, there is a 6-month timeline, which by regulation has been extended to 2 years, for you to, from the commencement of the act, for you to deal with unissued share capital.
Okay.
Right. Now, people have argued that is not exactly what the law is saying, that the law is talking about minimum issued share capital. And what we will simply tell them is to go back to Section 868, which defines share capital. Now, that section says share capital is the issued share capital of a company at any given time. What that means is that whatever shares or fraction of your share capital that is not issued is not recognized as your share capital.
Oh, okay.
So if it's not recognized as your share capital, then of what essence is it?
Okay.
Right.
All right. Then we have surrender of shares to company as gift.
Yes. That is also another right, that the law allows shareholders, is their right. I mean, just like shares are considered properties like any other property, and if they are your properties, as long as you are paid for them, you can do as you will with them. I can decide to dash you this my cap that I'm wearing. I can decide to give you my phone. I can decide to give you my pen.
So with
I
shares
can also
too.
decide to give you my shares. So the law allows shareholders to surrender their shares to the company back as gifts. And once that is done, right?
That would be an area that would be very welcomed.
Oh, yes.
Shares as gifts.
Yes.
Especially for big companies that are doing very well.
So where that is done, those shares become the properties of the company again. And the company can do with it as it wills, allot it. So you have to provide for that to happen, a regime where people can come back and file. That interface is also not ready. When somebody surrenders the shares to to a company as a gift, we must be able to remove that person on the record as a shareholder and free those shares for the company to be able to allot it again.
Okay, all right. And then we go to the restriction of address.
Again, that's
a very big issue.
Yes, that's a benefit. It's a benefit that the law has given to directors strictly, and then generally to officers of entities, shareholders, and even shareholders, trustees, partners, in the case of business names, because of security concerns. And this is a global concern. It's not just a Nigerian issue. It's a global concern. Before this time, at the height of the Niger Delta agitation, and then the militants that situation produced, right? There were times we went on enforcement compliance drive to Port Harcourt, and you'll find that most of the big companies don't even have their signages outside their place of business, which ordinarily was a contravention of the law. You know, and the law
And
requires
you can't
that you
sanction them
have
because of
that.
the situation.
No, where we did then, but I mean, it hadn't become a global concern at that time, but now it's a global concern, and you can now relate, you can understand why it is so. You know, there are some crimes we call opportunistic crimes, you know, and people don't have you as a target, but when they have, they find that it's easy to reach you, to target you, they do. Sometimes it may just be coming across your information and they're able to target you. So if it is about reaching a director or the officers, there is what you call the service address. So the law has now provided for residential address and service address.
Okay.
If it's about communicating, corresponding with the person, you can use the service address. You don't have any business with his residential address. So while the law requires that you provide that to the CAC, the law also gives you the powers, the right to say, please don't put this on public record.
Okay. Then the next one is the extension of time for holding annual general meeting.
Yes.
Isn't that an area people will take advantage of? Annual general meeting are supposed to have specific
yes, they have specific
frame.
timelines, actually. There are. And don't forget again that annual general meeting, all kinds of companies, right? Only small companies are not required by law to hold annual general meetings. But if they choose to find, but there's no compulsion. Of course, the one-man company does not need annual. I can't be meeting myself and talking to myself. So I carry my meeting with myself. So you find, for those who are supposed to hold it, who are required by law to hold it now, these are people with large extensive operations, you know, and there are sometimes reasons why they may not be able to, particularly those in the strictly regulated industries like banking, insurance, and a few others. Now, these classes of companies usually will need to get approval for some of their returns and reports, you know, like audited accounts and all of that, before they can go on to hold the meeting. Because part of the things that the meeting will consider will be your audited financial statements. Members will have to look at it and say, okay, and interrogate it, and then accept. Because of these requirements, you know, these approvals that you need to obtain here and there, also some other intervening circumstances, a company may not be able to meet that timeline. The timeline between one annual general meeting and the other should not exceed 15 months, except it is extended by an application, by the commission upon an application from the company. Okay. And that extension can only be for 3 months. So give or take, it cannot be more than 18 months.
Okay. Yeah. All right. Due to time, we just take the remaining 3. We have the voluntary striking off. We also have the relisting of company, and the last one on the list is the notice of exemption of foreign companies.
Yes.
So
the voluntary winding up is also new. Yeah. I mean, what we had before was striking off, not voluntary. Sorry, voluntary striking off. What we had before was striking off at the instance of the commission. Operators and companies could not by themselves come and say, look, we are not doing business anymore. Just strike off our name. The only alternative open to them was winding up. You know, if they want to go, that would be voluntary winding up. But now the law has recognized that, look, one, winding up is a very long and cumbersome process, right? And it's also capital intensive, you know. So, I mean, if a company has not started, has just been registered and has not started business and has no commitment to anybody, why can't they just tell you that we are no longer, please, can you just remove our name from the register of active companies? We are no longer interested, you know. So there are the requirements to be met, but the gist of it all is that companies can now by themselves initiate a striking. You know, as an alternative to winding up and then waiting upon the commission to initiate it. Now, the other one is relisting of companies. Where companies are struck off, it is not a final action. Okay. That company is not dead yet. Okay,
can bounce back.
Particularly if we are the ones that, it was the instance that you were struck off. You can always go, creditors or the company itself can always say, look, that was an error. I'm still in business, so go to court. Convince the court. Once you can persuade the court that there's some.
And that will take ages.
No, usually it's even by originating summons. They don't need to put us on notice, right? Once the court is satisfied, they'll give an order for us to release. And then you have the exemption of foreign companies. The minister has powers to exempt companies, foreign companies, under certain circumstances. But we need to know
Okay.
which companies are exempted, because there are also obligations under the law upon these companies.
Okay.
Returns that must be filed by them.
Okay. Mr. Tolulokbe Adeola Shanaike, Assistant Director, Registry Department, Corporate Affairs Commission. Great talking to you as always.
Thank you very much, Medina.
And that's how we bring to a close this week's edition of the program CAC Weekly. We do hope you enjoyed watching. For comments and inquiries, please take advantage of our social media handles and our helplines. Remember, on Twitter, it is at CAC Nigeria 1. On Instagram and Facebook, it is Corporate Affairs Commission. Our email is cservice@cac.gov.ng. You could visit our website on www.cac.gov.ng, and our helplines are 081-822-99016 or 081-822-98971. 090-874-01598 or 090-874-01599 and 090-874-01600. Do join us next week for another interesting edition of the program. Same time and same station. From me, Amina Jabril, and the whole team here, it is bye for now.